You're tuned to the Nowhere Signal. What you're about to hear was never meant to be found.
The call came in at exactly 3:13 a.m. That was the first weird thing. Darren Holloway had been in the middle of a nap in his recliner, TV still flickering in the background, half a beer warming on the table, when his work phone buzzed. He blinked blearily at the screen. Hillsborough Tower. Emergency maintenance request. He rubbed his face. Another call-out. Another broken freight pulley or jammed door sensor. He almost ignored it. But then he saw the address. 913 South Lexer Avenue. His stomach sank a little. He'd been to Hillsborough Tower once before. And once had been enough. 15 minutes later, he was standing in front of the building. A quiet, mirrored skyscraper that rose higher than anything else on the block. Too tall for how little business it seemed to do. No signage. No logo. Just Hillsborough carved in brass above the revolving doors. He pressed the call button. The intercom crackled. No voice responded, just a click as the doors unlocked. Inside, the lobby was far too cold. Lights were on, but dimmed. Security desk, empty. Cameras, turned, but didn't blink. He was alone. Darren scanned the work order again. It said the elevator had stopped functioning around 2:50 a.m. Security claimed the car disappeared from camera view when it reached the 14th floor. Weird wording. He walked to the elevator bay. 3 standard silver doors. The center one had a maintenance panel open. A small yellow sign above it blinked. Error, floor not found. He raised an eyebrow. That wasn't a standard code. He reached for his tools. As he opened the panel to check the diagnostics, something flickered in the corner of his eye. A screen above the door briefly showed footage from inside the elevator car. It was empty. But the floor indicator didn't say 14. It said, then it blinked out. He frowned. Great. Fried board. He sighed and stepped into the car to run a manual test. The lights overhead flickered the moment he entered. The panel chimed. Then it displayed, going to floor 14. He hadn't pressed anything. As the elevator rose, a hum felt wrong. Too smooth. Like it wasn't moving vertically at all. There was a soft whirring sound behind the walls. Like sliding. Then it stopped. Ding. Floor 14. The doors opened. But the hallway on the other side didn't match any blueprint Darren had ever seen. The doors slid open with a soft hiss. No grinding. No rumble. Just that same unnatural smoothness. Darren stepped to the threshold and paused. This wasn't floor 14. Not really. There were no lights overhead, just a gray glow coming from sconces along the wall, like emergency lighting left on for decades. The hallway stretched left and right into a sort of haze, with office doors every 20 feet or so. He glanced at the wall. No floor number marker. He checked his phone. No service. Of course. Still holding his tool bag, he stepped out. The elevator doors remained open behind him. For now. The floor was dusty, but only slightly, like it had been walked on, but not cleaned. The office labels looked off. Accounts was spelled accounties. Another door read conference RM2. Each word seemed corrupted. Like something was trying to remember what the right version was, but couldn't fully recall. Darren knocked on one door just to break the silence. Nothing. He opened it. Inside was a standard-looking office with cubicles, desks, and old computers. But everything was frozen. Coffee mugs filled with gray mold. A fax machine still churning out the same page, caught halfway. The screen on one monitor glowed softly. Text on it read, "Stay in the CAR." He blinked. Read it again. Then the screen powered off on its own. That was enough. He turned to go back to the elevator, but the hallway behind him was no longer the same. The elevator was still there, but the walls had changed. The same sconces were flickering with red light now, and the doors all looked freshly painted. He looked around. It was the same hallway, but not. He took one careful step back toward the car. Ding. The elevator doors began closing on their own. He sprinted forward and shoved a wrench between them. They stopped. Just barely. He squeezed through and got inside. The panel inside was now different too. The floor numbers were scrambled. Instead of 1 to 20, the buttons were B divided by 3 divided by 7 divided by 14 divided by 14A divided by 14B/infinity, and one that just said. He stared at it. The doors closed. No floor was selected. The car began moving. But not up. Not down. He felt it, a horizontal slide. Almost like drifting sideways through a tunnel. He leaned against the wall, trying to stay calm. This wasn't a malfunction. This was something else. The elevator slowed. Ding! The doors opened again. And the hallway in front of him looked identical to the last one. But it wasn't. Because this time, there were footprints in the dust. And they were his. The footprints were unmistakably his. Heavy tread. Left slightly deeper on the right boot. He always walked with a slight lean from an old knee injury. There was no way anyone had faked that. But he'd never been here before. Not this version. Not unless the elevator had taken him in a circle. But the hallway wasn't identical. Not anymore. The paint on the walls was newer. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead instead of sconces. He could hear what sounded like typing from somewhere down the corridor. And music, a faint, old-timey jazz tune, like something from a gramophone in a room behind glass. It was subtle. Familiar, somehow. Distant. He followed the footprints for a few steps, but they became erratic, veering left and right. As if whoever made them had been disoriented. He paused beside a water cooler that wasn't there in the last version. It was humming. Working. Cold condensation pooled beneath it. Someone was maintaining this floor. Or something wanted it to appear that way. A phone rang. Loud. Close. He turned toward the sound and realized there was a desk directly beside him, a reception area that hadn't been there when he arrived. The phone rang again. Old-fashioned. Rotary. Cream-colored. It had a handwritten label, maintenance, answer only if lost. It rang again. Darren stared at it. And picked up. A voice, distant and crackling with static, "You've gone too far. You need to exit before the loop resets. Floor 14B, use the sideways key." Then silence. He looked at the receiver. Nothing but dead air. He set it down slowly. Back in the hallway, the elevator had vanished. No open door. No seam in the wall. Just more corridor. And then, the hallway tilted. Not physically. Not in a way his body could feel. But in that deep part of the brain where gravity lives. It felt like the entire direction of the building had shifted. He stepped back in alarm, and a door behind him opened on its own. No number. Just a blank steel surface. Inside, the room was completely black except for a single, narrow panel glowing on the far wall. He approached. It was another elevator panel. This one had just 3 buttons, exit SAME other. He stared. And then pressed other. The room vibrated. The wall behind him shimmered like heat rising from asphalt. The light above the panel blinked twice. And then the wall became a window. Through it, Darren saw what looked like the same floor. But now the hallway was completely empty. No lights. No doors. No sound. Just an impossible tunnel of walls stretching forever. And at the far end, a mirror. Standing alone. The window faded again, and the wall before Darren shimmered like water. Then it opened. Not slit opened, like a curtain being pulled back. Beyond it lay the tunnel. Long. Lightless. No sound but his own breath. He stepped through. The air changed instantly. Colder. Still. His footsteps echoed down the endless hallway. No more doors. No signs. No walls that made sense. Just smooth surfaces that absorbed light like velvet. And at the very end, that mirror. Perfect. Freestanding. Waiting. He walked toward it slowly. Not sure why. There was a hum in the walls now. Soft. Almost like whispering electronics. The closer he got, the more it felt like the mirror was watching him. And when he stood before it, he realized something was off. The reflection didn't match. He blinked. Stepped left. The reflection stepped right. Simultaneously. But the face wasn't the same. It was him. Yes. But not him. Same build. Same uniform. But the expression was wrong. The other Darren was smiling. Just a little. Eyes too wide. Too still. And then it lifted its hand. Pressed it against the glass. Darren didn't move. The reflection mouthed something. 2 words. He couldn't hear them, but he knew what they were. Stay here. Suddenly, a clang echoed behind him. He spun around. A door had appeared in the wall. The elevator. Back again. Lit up. Open. But not for long. He turned back to the mirror. The other Darren was gone. No reflection. Just Darren staring into an empty surface that didn't return the favor. He backed away slowly. And ran for the elevator. The moment he stepped inside, the doors began to close. The panel inside had changed again. This time, it only said, "One chance left." And a single button that pulsed softly, he pressed it. And the car began to move. Fast. Too fast. Like falling sideways through a tunnel made of static. Then, silence. And the elevator stopped. Ding. The doors opened. And for the first time since this all began, there were people. The hallway was identical to the original 14th floor. Same layout. Same walls. Same ceiling tiles. But dimmer. Like the lights had lost half their strength. The people, they were walking, talking, working. Sort of. Their movements were slightly too slow. Their gestures didn't sync with their expressions. One man laughed, but there was no sound. Another typed without a keyboard. They didn't seem to notice Darren. He stepped forward. No one turned. He walked past a group in a meeting room, standing in a circle but not speaking. Their mouths opened and closed on a silent rhythm. It was like watching a playback. But corrupted. Something was looping. And this wasn't his floor. Not exactly. A sign on a nearby wall read, "Floor 14B, simulation active." He walked past it, heart pounding. Further down, he found a break room. On the wall was a mirror. A familiar one. And in its surface, 2 reflections. His own. And the other Darren. Watching him. Not moving. The door beside the mirror creaked open. He stepped inside a small server room filled with blinking machines. A panel on the wall displayed a maintenance log. His name was on it. But the date was tomorrow. A voice crackled through the speakers. Low. Dry. Only one of you can return. You've triggered the collapse window. Choose now. He turned. The other Darren stood in the doorway. Expression unreadable. Silent. And then, he stepped aside, revealing the elevator behind him. Darren moved toward it. Every step felt like choosing something. He looked back once. The other Darren nodded slowly. Like it had all been planned. Like this was the purpose. He entered the elevator. The doors closed. There were no buttons now. Just a screen that displayed one phrase, sync complete. The elevator moved. Not sideways. Not up or down. Just moved. When the doors opened, it was the real world again. Normal lights. Clean floor. Muted office sounds. And no one noticed as Darren walked out. Just like that. He left the building. But the last frame of security footage, as later reviewed by building staff, showed something strange. For exactly 2 seconds before the elevator doors opened, there were two shadows inside.
The nowhere signal will return tomorrow. Until then, sleep light.